have a halo around your head.
Oh, it's about the only way I'm going to get one. All right. First order, I asked you to look into the assignment that we did last time and to see whether you had any questions or comments or things like that. Preferably more questions and less comments. No questions?
I thought they were very self-explanatory.
Okay. Okay. All right. Here's a set if you want a set then.
Thanks.
All right. This is for tonight. Terry? All right, we're looking at two different patterns, but both patterns have something in the ninth house, and we're going to look at the two sets, and then we're going to try to come to some conclusions about the ninth house. However, Mark will spend the entire time trying to guess who it is, but he'll never guess this one because it's, unless you know a few strange facts about this person, it's pretty obscure. The person is well known or was well known. All right, let's look at the first. Is just a simple combination of Jupiter in Libra in the ninth house, which is sextile to Neptune in Leo in the eighth house. And here comes Mark's first clue. The first clue is that Neptune represents often undiagnosable conditions, and this man died from an undiagnosed heart condition. He was in a teeny tiny fender bender accident, and there was no injury to anyone, and 2 hours later he laid down and died because there was a rare bleeding kind of thing, and then it led to a bleeding of a vessel around the heart, and then he died of a massive heart attack. You got it already, Mark? It's going to be fun tonight. I've been sitting in so much. All right. Philosophical generosity and charm as an idealist. This is one of the more charming men that you'd want to see. All fairly simple. They all are self-explanatory, as Lulu says. Ideals which are open-minded and gracious. Very simple. Personal values which are big, forgiving, and balanced. All right. Any questions about any of the first 10 that relate to Jupiter in Libra in the ninth house? Luann, do you have any? Okay.
A broad, expansive education in theology or philosophy.
Okay.
I can accommodate others' beliefs in my personal philosophical system.
Yes.
Let's see. Okay. My enthusiasm for philosophy wins me many like-minded friends.
Okay. All right.
And I kept using philosophy. My philosophical studies are broad and high-minded, and I enjoy sharing them with a partner.
Okay. Yes. Partner had unusual, different kind of responsiveness. All right. Looking at Neptune and Leo in the eighth. Now the funny thing is, intuitive central diagnosis with reasons. Sustained uncanny meanings of things. But I had one in here before I knew how he died. I did the sentences first and then looked up the biographical material on the web afterwards. Spiritually enlightened and illumined situationed such solutions to shared problems. The 8th house is the solving of shared problems. Confusion and misunderstanding in immense and egotistic losses of attention. The 8th house is losses. Heuristic threshold sensitivity. The heuristic is the leonine part, it's self-teaching. The threshold is the 8th house, and the sensitivity is Neptune. You can actually make 3-word keyword sentences and they work out. You have any, Terry?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Just a question.
Yes.
With Neptune in the 8th house, that would make for a weird kind of a death. would it
Yes. 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 One that's not easy to explain. They had to do a autopsy to find out the reason for death. He died in his son's apartment. He was backing out of the driveway, and somebody was backing out of another driveway and bumped into him. It was a fender bender, and they just exchanged insurance cards and went on their way. And he went to his son's house, and he was going to help him move or something. He said, "But I need to lay down and sleep first. I'm feeling tired." And he laid down and never got back up. Do you have some sentences? It's up to you. It's you and I tonight. Because
I don't have.
I don't
stories,
think
no.
I don't think Mark has more than 40 or 50 sentences.
Actually, I didn't do. I was busy this week, so.
Oh, so it's all up to me. So we're having a 10-minute class tonight. How can you do that to me? Did you get something written on the book, though?
I was actually doing more stuff with the music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
So
the book I'm waiting until the summer.
now, do
to really
you
get
collaborate on the music with your do you guys live
he
together?
helps me with the electronic part of it.
Okay. Do you guys live together? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have any then?
Oh, I do.
Okay.
During self-introspection, I experience confusion and vagueness.
Okay.
I can find joy and fulfillment in my inner spiritual explorations.
Okay.
I derive great pride in the sense of self from... Oh, never mind. I'm sorry. No, skip that one. I introspect so as to experience the nature of my true spiritual self.
Okay. Good. We know Abby doesn't have any. She didn't even have an assignment. We got to work her into something somehow, though.
I thought about emailing you or something, but I didn't get around to it.
Yeah, because you don't want to receive intrusive emails from me. I'm very daring with email. See, if I once get your address, I might send you all kinds of crazy stuff.
It'd be exciting.
I actually have a lot of email correspondence. I usually respond to everything that everybody sends me. Sometimes it takes me a little while. All right, then we start moving to the simple elements of the next pattern, the one that revolves around Saturn. It has Saturn, the Sun, Mercury, Pluto, and Moon in it. It's a much bigger pattern.
Oh.
Saturn in Libra in the 9th house. And there's a note in the sentences here that because most of the Saturn aspects are negative, even the elemental sentences, I took the more negative side of them. Elegant and stylish, but dark higher ideas. You can see here, this is very different from the Jupiter part. Recompense and patronization permeate my attitudes toward religion, though there is an attempt to be fair. So he's too good for religion, maybe. Fairly simple. Kidney stone from renal restrictions and perhaps from bad food and too much travel. You can see they all have a rather negative tone about them. Skepticism about vicarious sacrifice and hardness, it should be, about generalization.
Wait, what is renal restriction?
Renal restriction is when the little tubes or the sacs in the kidneys pinch shut and they don't pass the fluids.
Why would they do that? I guess from bad food and too much travel?
Yeah, and that's one possibility. Yeah, it's all diseases start with attitude. If you start with bad thinking, you're eventually going to have some kind of bad condition, because you build your body with your thoughts and you maintain your body with your thoughts, and eventually your chickens come home to roost, and so that's how it goes. Do you have any sentences? That we've exhausted everything you've done already? I bet you did them in 5 minutes on the way over in the car. At least you didn't put on lipstick in the car.
I did the sex style.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I'm very happy that you've done as much as you've done, because a lot of people do not do a lot of things.
Like me.
No, you did a lot too. It's just that you haven't been so regular lately, so you can't even get the assignments. You're not a bad girl.
I know I'm not a bad girl.
All right, let's look at the Sun in Capricorn in the first house. And again, the same kind of footnote. We're saying that we're taking a lot of negatives. A practical, oh, look, how did I do that? A practical, down-to-earth, self-educated person. They're all fairly simple. Authoritative luminaries surround him, and there may be tendencies to mockery or black humor. This person did like black humor. This is somebody that was a very strong influence in my life in several ways, and then became an anti-influence to me when I changed and he didn't. He became more of what he was, and I became something different than what I was. You got it, who it is ready, Mark? You can see he's from New York. I want to have fun.
If I got my glasses, I can see that. Otherwise, if you
I want to have fun. This is such a staid group here tonight. All right. Keen tradition or pragmatic awareness or observation of the without, meaning he can take a good reading on you very quickly. Great entrances with subdued magnanimity and dignified personal appearances. All fairly common for Capricorn rising kinds of things. Well, there is the sort of a hick kind of Capricorn sun and Capricorn rising, but with the stubbly beard and all of that. But that's not, you'd have to intuitively pick that up because there are no answers.
He's a Sagittarius.
Yes, but we're talking about the first house there. There isn't much left of Sagittarius there. He was tall, though. He wasn't short like you would expect with Capricorn, 2 planets in Capricorn rising. Do you have any sentences for this thing? No? Okay. I'll be sure to keep pestering you all night, though. All right, then we look at Mercury in the Capricorn in the first house. Mental precocity and sagacious analysis of prevailing conditions. Clever trickery in restriction or conditional circumstances to get to the basics of things. He wore glasses, Mark. And we've already told you he was tall, and the big one is that he's from New York, and we told you how he died. You must certainly know. Deft finesse in assertions about the surface of things or the appearances and appeal to established authority. All of those are like Mercury. This is somebody that when he got out of college and when he was in college, every college joke book that was available, he memorized. He memorized every one of them so that on any occasion he'd always have a joke ready.
That's weird.
Well, if you want to succeed in show business, which he did.
Oh.
So is he a comedian?
Sort of. Sort of. I don't know. I would not. He's such an all-around person. It's very hard to categorize him. Mark, you got who it is already? Ah, how could you? All right. Do you have any sentences for this? You throw your hand up in the air when we get to a part where we do have sentences, all right?
Okay.
All right. We have an agreement. All right, then we're looking at Pluto and Cancer in the 7th house. A powerful but emotionally cold partner. She would never laugh at any of his jokes. Never. Because you sort of, it's that thing, if you live with somebody who is a comedian, you're not looking for jokes from them. You know, like you have your everyday things, and the fact that your partner might be telling you a joke never dawns on you, or making some kind of a quip never dawns on you. You say, well, what does that have to do with the potato dish? His wife was in show business also. Now that's a big hint, to have two people who are famous in show business married to each other.
Steve Allen?
Huh? Yes.
Steve Allen?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
He got, oh, Mark, you got one up. You're never going to hear the end of this.
I was thinking of that a little bit earlier, and I thought, no, it couldn't be, because he was such an avowed atheist.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we haven't come to that part yet. That's what we're supposed to do at the very end. Now you not only got the name ahead of everybody else, you spilled the beans on everything that we're doing.
Richard, I have a question.
Yes.
As far as the emotional coldness, is that the Pluto that makes the Cancer
Yes.
cold?
Yes.
Even Cancer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Cancer is a water sign, and that's an emotional sign.
Mm-hmm.
And Pluto is ultra cold, even colder in some ways than Saturn is. Pluto is like a deep freeze. It never comes out. It stays that way all the time. Depressing adjudication with extreme negativity. Clannish opinions with nostalgic indirection and reserved feedback, but that doesn't really describe him. But we're looking for variety here. We're not trying to actually do a description of the person. We're supposedly poking around.
Clannish opinions, is that Cancer?
Yep. Cancer is the most clannish sign in the zodiac. Cancers, if you look, as I often do, anywhere in the world at personals want ads, if there's one sign advertising for the same sign, it's always a Cancer advertising for another Cancer. Yeah. I have two friends that are Cancers married to each other, and their whole life is each other. They have very little, have some family connections, but for the most part, their whole life is just being with each other. And they feel at home. They have to feel comfortable with each other.
Would that apply also if the person had the moon or the ascendant in
Yeah.
Cancer?
Yeah. All right. And we're looking at the moon in Sagittarius in the 11th house.
That's cool.
Avuncular feminine friends, aimless, exaggerated, wandering daydreams or philosophical wishes, all fairly simple stuff. Light, indulgent, public approval as everybody's nice guy. All of these describe him reasonably well. He wasn't exactly aimless, though. All right, now we're at the part where Lulu has some sentences. We are at the Jupiter sextile to Neptune.
Okay, so my spiritual philosophies are partly developed from my own intuitive experiences and explorations. Or in this case, non-spiritual, because I guess he was an atheist. Okay.
Because this is a divided man.
Okay. My academic knowledge informs my imagination and vice versa.
Okay.
And overconfidence in subjective spiritual experience could develop into sweeping judgments of religion as a whole.
Okay. Excellent. That's superb with who you are to his nature.
When I unite higher principles with imagination and intuition, I experience transcendence.
Okay.
And I can inspire others indirectly.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll find no disagreement with any of that. In my sentences, A lofty, laudable philosophy of cheery optimism and peace, developed by deflecting negatives and seeing through mysteries with the fiery eye of the heart. That describes him fairly well. Lulu says it's even a decent sentence instead of those clunky ones that look like they're built by a machine or something like that. Inspiration and aspiration, expanding on the hidden within and out in the open on display. All right, that's kind of a clunky sentence. Mastery of confusion or delusion expands into sense of purpose in beauty and ethics in sharing. Now, he really was, even though he was an atheist, he was a very high-minded, ethical man. And he looked for the good. The thing of it is, he did have a lot of interest in occult things. He just didn't want to, he just couldn't bring himself to believe them. You know, they had that real earthy sign quality that he doubted everything that you couldn't touch, and you know, unless you could put it in black and white in the simplest way possible, he didn't believe it. I remember, early in life I was an atheist, and I was surprised one time. He used to have the Tonight Show many, many years ago, and I remember he was sitting at the piano playing and singing It Ain't Necessarily So from the Gershwin's Porgy and Bess. And that is at least an agnostic, if not an atheistic song, because it's questioning all of the things out of the Bible, you know, that this happened, but it ain't necessarily so. And so he was doing that all the time, and it made such sense to me. I thought, wow, this is a great guy. And then later on, toward the end of his life, he was writing books like Dumpf. He said there's such a thing as length and width and depth. There should be such a thing as Dumpf. And for him, Dumpf was anything that didn't agree with the way he looked at things. He was narrow-minded, but you get what I'm trying to get at there. All right, let's look at the Sun conjoined Mercury. A self-trained, accurate observer of the world. That's just him exactly. He's for the most part, most of his views on science and things like that have not to do with his academic education. It has all to do with his self-education. Brevity is the soul of wit, and pithy concentration its body. That's a decent sentence for a short one too. I usually write the behemoth sentences. Do you have anything to add?
No.
Oh, good job. That's good. Trump my ace, you're going to come out with something and say, oh. The ability to needle people with pinpoint accuracy. The without, I guess, could almost be left out of there. It's just a keyword. In insecurity, he may think the same thoughts monomaniacally, hoping to make a breakthrough in his doubt, which is, I believe, he did. All right. The following sentences are for the Saturn squared the Sun. You have a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Before we go on, what would express the doubt here?
Capricorn. Earth signs, but Capricorn especially.
Yeah.
Capricorn is the most naysaying of all of the signs.
Is the insecurity Capricorn too?
What?
The insecurity? Is that
Yes.
Capricorn?
Yes. But the insecurity is especially because of what we're talking about now, and it's the Sun square Saturn.
Oh.
You have questions about that?
I was just wondering where you were getting that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The earthy signs, even Virgo is likely to doubt. They want something, if they can't touch it, you know, they're not, it doesn't exist. Taurus has the strangest relationship toward doubt. Taurus will refuse to let go of its doubt because it has its identity all tied up in the doubt itself. This is why our friend Don used to, if he would admit to doubting some of those things, the wacky things that he believed in, that would have been it. He would have believed that he didn't have anything to stand on. That he wouldn't have anything to live by. All right. A concentrated self-made man who can never please himself because his ideals of perfection are too high. That sounds like Sun Square Saturn.
Could
Yes.
one say earthly perfection in this?
Yeah, but in anything, Saturn Sun aspects are all very demanding, and they demand the ultimate and beyond of self. But the afflictions are such that a person can never feel like they ever reach them. Even if they far surpass other people, they never feel like they reach them, and they just hammer at themselves that way.
Primarily, the only reason I asked that is you had said you had seen him on the Tonight Show when they had this special on about late show hosts. He was one of them, and he was very meticulous about doing skits. And he would go through them till all of a sudden he would just crack up and laugh, and he couldn't control it anymore.
Yeah.
That was it, you know. That was the end of it.
Yeah, something switched over from Saturn to Jupiter.
Oh.
Yeah.
I love it when that happens.
What?
I love it when that happens. I'll just be all like, "Ugh," and I'll be like, "Cat," and I'll start laughing.
Yes. All right. A personal preoccupation with material earth could cause a fear of air travel that he must do anyway. I don't know whether he had that fear of air travel. I didn't find it in any of the biographical material that I looked into. A man-child who can never please himself and is afraid even in age. I think that somewhat describes him. An earlier childhood with older people caused him to be serious and venerate elders, and he carries this gravity into a waxing adult philosophy of painstaking values. Then we look at another element, or another compound element. We look at Saturn square Mercury. You have anything for Saturn square Mercury? Could you? You're too easy to tease. All right, a mind obstructed by its own observations and the limits of the elegant but small principles it works for. Precocity that does not age well because it fights with perfective pessimism. All of these they're reasonable good sentences. I put a lot of work in, a lot of time making sure I had some. There are a few clunkers in here. These are all fairly decent sentences. Vanity and egoism about intelligence rooted in childhood experiences that put a ceiling on his ability to soar into aerial spheres. That's actually almost an analysis of why that happened to him, why he couldn't soar and fly off into a realm of belief.
What? Okay, so rooted in childhood.
Yes.
Can that be explained in the Saturn square Mercury?
Yes, sometimes, because Mercury's in the first house, and that's early childhood. And that means that he has started something at a very early age, and that which he has started will become so established in his character that it will be hard to overcome and change.
Okay.
Boxed in by an idealistic upper limit and an earthbound outer limit, he struggles to build a consistent worldview. That is very good with all of those squares there. I have to even compliment my own sentences because Lulu has let me down. I have to compliment my own because there's none there from her to... And then there are very few sentences for the Sun square Pluto because both of the planets are way out there and it's very hard to get onto it, but it's really a dark, dark thing. Deep, dark, depressive blockage from imponderables out of reach. or power struggles with powerful emotional counterparts, and negative but cultured religious figures. A severely demanding and emotional draining public life and a cold civil idealism conflict to build uncertain heaviness that seems in the hands of others. That's from the inside out kind of a sentence. Negation that is reliable and trustable because constant and which could construct the philosophy of benign negativity or elimination if one didn't buckle under it. It's very hard to not buckle under that one though. All right, is any questions on that? Do you have any sentences?
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you have a question though.
Yeah, I do. As far as the deep, dark, depressive blockage, so is that something that never even entered his consciousness?
It's there. It's just like there's some certain directions that he can't penetrate and get to.
But it still affects him?
Yes, I think it's probably with his wife. He probably really didn't know her. You know what I mean? He was just blocked from ever going that direction because of that. You know, you can still love somebody, or you can still be a partner to them, but you don't necessarily really get to know them and feel comfortable with them.
The thing is, I think I thought I heard it right, and Mark seems to agree that you said Sun squared Pluto, and it's
No, it's
Saturn squared Pluto.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I do that sometimes.
We all do it.
All right, and then we have a very few sentences for the Sun and Mercury opposite to Pluto. An individuality forced into mental concentration on the world because balance from an equal but opposite is dead to participation as a team. I suspect, putting this together with the last one that we talked about in the Saturn-Pluto sentences, I suspect that they were pleasant with each other, but had basically a standoff relationship with each other. You know who he was married to? He was married to a woman named Jane Meadows. And she had, even listening to her voice, it was a cold kind of voice to listen to. A personal, mental, and individual coldness and crystallization in a polarized stance of emotional paralysis and materialistic hardness. See, I don't have much, all the Pluto stuff that I have, which isn't a lot, is all positive, and I don't have hardly any Saturn active in my chart, and then when I get around all of that coldness and hardness, it's tough for me. A personal, mental, and individual coldness and crystallization in a polarized stance of emotional paralysis and material hardness. I guess it all stands for itself. See, Lulu, I actually sneaked pellucid in there. You see that on number 120, I sneaked that in there. It means very, very clear, even like it's more clear than crystal clear.
So lucid means, what is lucid?
Pellucid.
But lucid.
Lucid means of waking consciousness.
Okay, and so
Pellucid is a step further. It's something like limpid, but that's, yeah. See, she knows all the words. She knows all.
I learned them all on freerice.com.
yeah.
Oh, you play freerice.com?
I've been playing it a lot
Yeah.
this morning.
All right, and then we have finally we come to the positive things. The moon sextile Saturn. Tactful moral expression carries into broad-minded friendships with mature women. See, we're not the same with all people in our lives. And, like where he may be very hard with other men, as far as skepticism and things like that are concerned. With women, he's probably a little bit more open. I never heard him say anything about his wife's belief or his relationship to her beliefs or anything like that. All right, well-focused and balanced ideas lead to an overview of science that is positively positive, yet forward and futuristic. A word missing there. We call that the product of senior living. Huh? Does it happen to you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, at your age? Oh yeah, sometimes you think you're flowing ahead with your thought. Do you have any sentences on this?
No.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to be one with my class today.
Oh, okay. That sounds like a common sign mercurial alibi if I ever heard one. All right. Now let's go to the sentences that are more important. This time I did not make technical sentences to say what I was trying to point to. I just made the sentences. And I put a lot of thought into them, and they're all long sentences, like the last one, a deadlock, seesaw, horizontal battle between a personality which is self-made and desperately independent, and a power-oriented individuality rooted power-oriented individuality rooted in emotional opinions, which is emotionally elusive enough to counter every open move of the personality, which battle is measured or tested by a coldly balanced and poised higher mind steeped in ideals and principles, but no less concrete than the person, that's supposed to be than the personality, not that the personality, which higher consciousness seeks, in which higher consciousness seeks relief and expanded approbation from friendships and associations, in which it treats with cool rigor and principled discipline, which associations might be fair and honest, but not enough to satisfy struggling self and dogging doubts.
Can't get meaning out of that sentence because it started yesterday. And
Yeah. But you get the whole
I
idea.
get the drift.
Yeah.
The question, when you did this, did you also check just for your own curiosity's sake to see whether or not they were compatible as Earth signs?
No, I never looked at her chart. I'm not even sure I have the information for her chart. All right, an excellent concentration and observation building toward cultural morals and values, but with so much darkness and heaviness that even very elevated and abstracted attempts to reflect into something egalitarian may not be able to remove it from skepticism, and it may end up with serving material heaviness. You guys hear what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to describe the whole pattern as a struggle that was his whole life. Because even though if you get into discussion with skeptics and atheists and things, that have people that have attitudes like that, they're very smug in those situations, because in the strength of an argument they have one set of values, but in themselves they're always struggling. During the years that I was an atheist, I was always struggling with I would lay in bed, I'd go to bed at night and I couldn't get to sleep. I would be thinking about, like, well, what if I'm wrong? Mine was a different kind of questioning. It wasn't so much a skeptical thing. Mine was more founded in egoism, and my whole being was at stake. Yes.
Another question. Based on his personality then, and who he married, would he or might he then have been looking for someone who would be rather condescending or,
I think it just happens. I have a friend that's getting into a relationship with another abuser. And they can't recognize, if you have programmed yourself to a certain kind of relationship or a certain kind of person that you need from the opposite sex to bring your awareness to an attitude that you have, you fall into it and you don't recognize it. You know, it's like out of the frying pan and into the fire. Very often, for example, the people who marry abusers or have relationships with abusers often are repeats 2 and 3 times over, because they meet the next person and they still haven't learned to recognize the symptoms in themselves, and then they get themselves into another abusive relationship.
Is it a lack of self-love?
It varies from individual to individual. But often there are people who do believe that they deserve to be beaten. There is a basic contradiction in it. I'll have to tell a story on myself. There was a time that I was interested in bondage and dominance. I was reading through the want ads. And there was an ad that read something like, proportionately Rubenesque woman seeks personal trainer with a firm hand. And it got my attention, and it really strongly got my attention. And being basically a pacifistic, harmless kind of person, it shook me up. Now, why should I be interested in that? And this set me into a whole thing. I never did get involved in a relationship of bondage and dominance, but it set me into a whole interesting thing with that. And I began to understand some of the psychology. But it led me to an understanding that all evil is stupid. And it is not consistent. Because the argument went something like this, as far as I could tell from talking to people who were into being dominated. It was, I need somebody to discipline me or to spank me in order to do the things that I need to do. But the question that comes to mind is, if a person enjoys being spanked, where's the discipline? You know, like there's an obvious contradiction in it. And if you look into all forms of evil, they have that same, the obvious contradiction. Now, you can psychoanalyze and you can see what's going through a person's consciousness and how their character got distorted one way or another, but the basic approach or the basic thing about evil itself is contradictory. It always turns out that way. It's stupid to follow a life of evil. It's stupid even on the simple one little evil act. The upshot of it is that I never did get into a relationship, but I finally came to understand in myself that I was trying to be too much like a Prussian general with my own self, and I was trying to harshly discipline myself, and then that projected onto other people. You can be self-controlled and you can have a good amount of discipline, but you don't have to be extreme about it. And it took that kind of activity to expose that to me at that time. In fact, it's been pretty much a linear thing in my life that as time has gone on, I am better disciplined, but I am less strict, if it makes any sense to you. Okay. Where are we here? Someone carefully floating above mundane things and trying to guide his values to something ideal leaves, but this would be a comma after ideal, leaves behind and below a heaviness difficult to bear as it tries the very core of his being. With a little parenthetical insert in there, the attempt to rise above the depressing things may even precipitate more of them. You see what we're trying to say here? It's a fairly clear thing. That's just that one complex, this is the Saturn part of it. Someone basically insecure about himself and his mind who may be selfish in striving for his definite and poised ideals, and who might be blind to balancing his partner who is strong enough to withstand him. A man who seeks friends with well-disciplined women for emotional security, because he can't do it with his partners, I guess. Or a man focused in the material aspects of the world so that they seem all that there is, and who counters himself with impossible questions, perhaps chosen for their impossibility, constantly tried by high and fair but very strict standards, and through these higher values, and though these higher values try to organize his bedimmed experiences into a science or philosophy which may be rigorous but probably serves his emotional bias and materialistic doubt. Okay, are you ready with yours, Lulu? Yes.
You said something about, in the previous sentence,
Yes.
who seeks friends and well-disciplined women for emotional security.
Yep.
Where in the chart would it indicate that?
The well-disciplined friends is the moon sextile to Saturn. Women, he's looking for women that are sort of, this is not somebody that wants a sweet, cushy, lovey-dovey partner. Even as a friend, he doesn't want that. He wants somebody that has some firmness. Emotional discipline is the moon sextile Saturn. There's always a little bit of reserve, but any emotional expression that there is going to be carefully disciplined.
And the friends is 11th house.
Yeah, yeah. All right, now let's look at the whole business all put together, which is the last 5 sentences or something like that. A person who uses definite, focused, and uncontrolled abstraction, expanding and reflective to solve problems which are very basic and mundane, and the result might be highly principled living and a synthesis of principles to do good moral and egalitarian ends, but never really overcoming insecurities and darkness, some of which are self-made, that make the things of day-to-day life in the material world filled with challenge, the challenge to overcome inner and outer darkness, an enlightener who desperately needs light. Yeah, the ideas in here, we just can't run them off. There's something that you have to think about, because I put a lot of thought into them so that they're not just flipped off the top of your head. Someone who can preserve moments of inward spiritual experience brought across the threshold of waking consciousness, and would like to universalize and share them for thoroughly benign ends. But when he does so, his well-trained sense of organization takes the spiritual life out of them, and they become staid universals, because of the well-trained sense of organization is built on careful materialistic observation, born of a pragmatism constructed as though his very being depended upon it. And because he is afraid of his own personal prejudices, which ironically he may not see because blinded by the material facts, which are the antithesis of spiritual experiences. This is in fact how he did work. He was interested in spiritual things, and he'd get engaged in them. But when he's all done with them, they were part of the atheistic part of himself. All right, a basic struggle between self and not self, which is a kind of elusive, unconquerable boogeyman. Boogeyman, that is an enantiodroma of a bright, quick, shiny, self-made personality that receives excessive attention from the outer world. Which struggle is measured by a fair and a strict authoritarian sense of values, and which struggle is expanded and distended into universal principles that are transcendently removed from the personality which is in struggle. What we're trying to say here is that the positive aspects can be used as some kind of escape from the basic darkness of the fundamental things of the personality. They serve the stronger aspects are obviously all of those squares and oppositions, and so they in turn serve them by giving abstract rhetoric to something that is never really resolved in the darker part of his being. All right, an individual is constantly seeking an impossible equality with others. Pluto is impossibles. On one level, it is between the materialistic self and a personality against an unbudging, imponderable other, which is the Pluto. And on another level, friends and associates in very broad but definite abstraction, which is anything but personal, with the two levels being united by a building process that is a struggle because there's so much doubt and darkness, and attaining equality might not be possible or recognized if it were. An inability to see the forest because of the trees. All right, that's fairly, that one requires a little more thought to understand the way I'm talking about the two sextiles, the Jupiter-Neptune and the Saturn-Moon. And the final one, a perpetual builder, concretizing from abstract principles, who is never personally satisfied and may even be insecure or depressed, and who is always happily fulfilled in some degree of universal synthesis. Okay. Makes sense. They're worth thinking on. Think on them again, and then next week we'll do some more of that. We are now entering into another phase. Now we're going to start doing astrology for real. We're not going to just be making all kinds of variety sentences. First, we just filled in the blanks to see that there were all kinds of possibilities. Then we started making simple keyword sentences. And now we've tried to make keyword sentences with all kinds of variety to help you out in situations to find out which ones apply to this person and which doesn't. Now what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and look at 4 facets of personality, describing each one using keyword sentences. And so I'm going to give you 2 horoscopes and an assignment, and then next week I'll give you 2 more horoscopes and the same assignment for those horoscopes. And the thing is to put together at least 4 or 5 sentences about the personality of each of the persons. The personality being the outward part of the being. Then after we've done that, you hang on to all the horoscopes because we're going to use them again, and then we're going to look at the emotional nature of all 4 horoscopes, and then we'll look at the mental nature of all 4 horoscopes, and then finally we'll look at the spirituality and creativity of all 4 horoscopes. We do the same thing in the advanced class that comes after this, only on a deeper level and a much more thorough study. These are just to do a quick, you can psychoanalyze if you want, you can describe, and you can think of things that would be helpful to the people. I'm not going to tell you who the people are until after we're all done, which will be next fall sometime, because I think we have 2 more classes after this week, and then this will be over for the spring. Okay, these are assignments. I made the horoscopes exceptionally clear and large so that you can see them.
So there are no classes during the summer?
No, we'll have a summer school, a little Rosicrucian summer school in August, but nothing during summer, no. Because I have other things that I have to get done. So. All right.
That's it?
That's it. Unless somebody has questions. Lulu, any questions?
I have a question about a degree thing. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. The Mars in zero of Scorpio, and I was just wondering, you mentioned something about the ascendant being the late degrees of Sagittarius, and I was just wondering about the very first degree and the last degree.
Usually things that are in the very first degree are things that are stronger in the character of the sign than things that are in the very last degree. And the reason for that is that during the developmental years, say the first 28 to 32 years, they're going to still be in the background of the sign that they're in by any form of progression or transit or things like that, and they become more fundamentally that. Whereas when you have something that's in the last degrees, it's transitional. It may be in one sign at birth, but during the development period, it'll be developing in the next sign, and so it's like a makeover kind of thing when it's in the last degrees of a sign. No questions? Where is your youthful curiosity? You're beginning to take me more with a grain of salt now. Meaning to say that
She's not a teenager.
you're not intimidated by me.
Did you think I ever was?
Not intimidated, but yes, you were shy and you didn't know what to do in relation. But I shouldn't say that too much. You likely get smug about yourself. All right, thank you very much.